Oof, we're selling off.
Well, okay. We can't kill the lead here. So some people are saying I'm a hopeless Trump sycophant. Can you imagine that? Some are saying that I don't understand the economics of tariffs or inflation. Some are even saying that this is horrible and we will never recover. So, you know what? Back me up. Don't back me up. How are you seeing things today on one of the worst days in stock market history? Where are we? What's happening? What are we? I'm just gonna turn you loose and let you go.
Oh, yeah, Randy. So I know you're putting this later, but we're obviously recording this just as the market closed. Um, Hopefully you don't mind me saying that. Um,
Okay, no, it's all good.
we we are in a very rare moment. Um, you don't see many markets like what we're going through right now. There's only been a handful. I think we had 2020, which most people here obviously went through. You have the financial crisis. You had um, the dot-com bubble. You had Black Monday. There's only a handful of these. And, we were talking about beforehand, if there's any, I guess, silver lining, is that it is happening quickly. Now, that quickly could be, it could continue, right? Like, we could go down 50%. This might be the beginning of it going down quickly. We don't know. But what we do know, again, if there is a silver lining, is that normally quick sell-offs have quick recoveries, right? I think like during COVID, that was short drops. It took about 4 months before we reached back to all-time highs. The financial crisis, I think that took like 17 months to go through. The dot-com bust, that took like 2.5 years. It was a slow grind down. Black Monday, that was quick and snappy. So I think if there's silver lining, it's that. But I think make no mistake, this is this is bad.
This is
This is
it's historic.
it's
How's
yeah, it's historically bad. Uh, it's you know i- the markets are spooked for sure. You put a post I think yesterday talking about what the market would closed on, and I, like a smart aleck, said no, you're wrong. It's actually gonna be a little higher than that. Wow, we were both dead wrong.
yeah.
Uh, Not to call you out, but really to call myself out because I'm constantly talking about when I'm right. I was really wrong about that. I really thought that we would have hit a bottom yesterday. I did not, even going into today, when I woke up this morning and I saw the SP futures down, I was like, oh my goodness. Like we are watching the Titanic sink, and it's like, no, did that really just happen? And it did. So I don't know what's gonna happen over the weekend. I do think we'll get more news that will probably lead to some relief next week. It would be my guess. You saw it start happen today with the Vietnam discussions. I imagine there's going to be a lot of stuff come out over the weekend, but brace for impact because this might have just been the start. We don't know how long or where this goes from here, but all I can say is brace for impact. Expect the worst and hope for the best. And again, if there's a silver lining, it's just that these quick drawdowns tend to have, you know, decent recoveries. But we don't know where we are on that timeline.
Right, right, right.
I'll pause there. You speak. You say something.
Okay.
Tell me what
All
you
right.
think. Ask me a
So,
question. Whatever you want.
all right. So I feel like part of today was the fact that it's Friday and that we're in this chaos. So sometimes your economic situation is a little more clear, like you're going into recession, you know that it's going to be a bad year. In this particular case, not at all. We have people still saying 40% chance recession, 60% chance recession. I have restated over and over again, I think we'll have at least 1 quarter of negative GDP, if nothing else, but because of the huge um, uh, uh, um, uh, what do you call it? The Sorry, I've had one of those moments. The huge international trade deficit that we just suffered for the first quarter. So it was 3 months in a row of people buying forward, which made the deficit the biggest ever in one quarter by a lot. And that is part of the GDP and is likely to put us into negative territory. Even if you took that out, the rest of the economy would be fine. So I think this particular situation that we're in right now is kind of one that is made worse by the fact that it's so chaotic and so unknown. And so being a Friday, I think the last leg down was probably because it's Friday.
You're probably right about that. I mean, people don't want to go into the weekend with a lot of risk on. Uh, a lot of people, I'm sure, capitulate today. I'm sure a lot of people got margin called today. I'm sure there's a lot that happened that kind of propelled things. Um, but but yeah, I don't know exactly where things go from here. It's interesting. I know we talk a lot about Tesla, obviously. It'll be interesting to see what kind of impacts this has because while Tesla may be way more than anyone else immune from tariff stuff, and they've got, good locations, supply chains, and all that figured out. That's all kind of irrelevant if all of your potential buyers just saw their portfolio drop by 50% or more, right? They're not necessarily going to be out there taking out car loans. Um, so it'll be interesting to see what that, if this has an impact on that. I find it hard to believe it wouldn't. Like this is pretty big deal. Like we said, it's historic, but again, we'll see how long it lasts. As far as everything else, Tesla's like nothing's changed, so I think that's why it's more or less held up pretty decently. It's down in after hours now, but compared to what we saw the rest of the S&P, I thought it held up pretty decently. I mean, it was down 10% today, so maybe not really, but if it's a when it's a beta of two kind of stock,
Oh no, I've been saying for days now that Tesla has held up fantastically. If you'd said to me, Randy, where's Tesla going to be if they come in with 335,000 as their number, and we also have risk off and a VIX at almost 40, and the market down, S&P down 20% from its all-time high, I would have probably said 185.
yeah.
So the fact that we're still sitting at 240 or 235 or wherever we are right now is to me evidence that either there's new money coming in, maybe conservative money that has come in over the last 3 or 4 months, people that have never ever played Tesla before, but they're now retailers that have come in. It might just be the FOMO about June that's holding it up. But something's holding it up because based on a normal response by Tesla, we would be at 185 for sure.
Yeah, well, honestly, uh, I think the big pull down that we had prior to all this last few days would have washed out a lot of people, and the people who are in there, like like us, like you know, it'll be the last thing we do is sell our stock before, especially before June.
Especially
Like,
before
you
June.
know, like I imagine people like us, even if you are a game margin call, whatever, you're like, I'm taking out a personal loan. I am not giving up my shares before June.
Dude,
You
I
know,
like it. I
like
like it. I think you're right.
no freaking way.
I think that just became the thumbnail.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you do whatever it takes because who knows what happens in June, but it's kind of the moment we've been waiting for. And so maybe nothing happens. Maybe the stock stays the same, but you know what? It's like we've held out for so long. I'm not selling before June. Impossible.
So technically, theoretically, maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't. I believe that the June catalyst, that when they start putting these robo-taxis out there, this is the number one catalyst, not for Tesla in its entire existence. It is the number one catalyst of all time for any company ever until Optimus comes out.
Uh,
In other words, the
I,
upside potential is greater than any product that's ever been introduced before in history.
I agree with you, but I don't think we'll start that. Like I kind of have a feeling that not that it's priced in, but I have a feeling that people won't start to price it in until we see it go from one city to another city.
Yeah.
Like let's see how long that takes to go from one city to another.
Did you see Brad Getzner's interview on, I think it was CNN? I'm not sure 100% about that, but anyway, he was interviewed, and because he famously sold all of his um,
Uber.
Uber stock and bought Tesla, and he's got a Model S, and he's driving it around, says he never touches the wheel. So he's very much on top of the current status of the vehicle. And it was interesting for him to say that he thought that there's actually going to be some pricing consideration in the market, or two things he said. It needs to be a lower price and and excellent on time. In other words, got to be there in 6 seconds or 7 seconds in order to keep the customers coming. And I'm sorry, I'm going to finish my own question here, but it's like, well, they'll be able to price it however they feel that the pricing needs to be. Um, Robert Scoble has said that he thinks it could be higher because there's no driver, there's no tip, and so that Waymo is charging more right now. So if it needs to be higher, it'll be higher. If it needs to be the same, it'd be the same. If it needs to be lower, they've got plenty of margin and plenty of opportunity, play time to do that. And then number two, they can flood the market. They can put out 5,000 vehicles if they wanted to in Austin
Yeah.
and make sure they're going to be on time. So it seemed like those are not non-starters. What do you think?
Um, so we just drove from Florida to Georgia. It was a total of 535 miles that we drove. We did not have a single intervention, not even to charge. I've never seen it do this. Every time we'd get to the charging station, it would just back up in on its own because it knew we were going to the charging station. Normally, when I drive it on a road trip, it sometimes it doesn't even know how to get to the charging station, but it most certainly never just goes ahead and parks itself in a charging station. This is the first time it's ever happened every single time. Um, I've had to do it once where we are like, oh my God, look, it happened. And then that was it. And like, oh, okay, that was a fluke, I guess. So that was honestly crazy, crazy. That many miles pulling, like literally, we had zero input. The only time I drove was we went through a Starbucks drive-through. That was it. That was the only time I drove.
These
So
drive-throughs are still a problem, huh?
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's not part of the stack. So I thought that was just insane. It was so perfect. It honestly, I was kind of getting like I was on work calls with my computer and on camera and everything, and I was literally telling my wife like, this is so stupid that I have to sit here and pay attention to because it keeps yelling at me. It,
Right.
it was honestly frustrating. Like this is so stupid. Like it's stupid. Like Elon, we got to get rid of this.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, I'm not. So all that to say that when we were driving up here, I was talking to my wife about, like what's it going to take for more people to adopt FSD? And so I kind of agree with Brad in the sense that when it comes to FSD, right, not robo-taxi, FSD, that they may need to drop the price. And I don't even think they should drop the price. I literally think it should just be on a per mile basis.
Mm.
Like I know people have like disagreed with me on this, but it's like, why wouldn't you just charge on a per mile basis? Like it makes so much more sense. And then give a discount for on a per month and give a discount for a year subscription. Like
Right.
it just makes more sense to me to do that because then at least you get more people using it. And it at least it makes the roads a little safer. But even if you did that, there's still a big barrier to entry to adopt FSD. And that barrier to entry is that you have to buy a Tesla.
Right.
You
Yes.
know, so like to use the right now $100 a month thing, you have to pay 30 grand plus for the vehicle. So that's a huge barrier to entry. And so I think that helps to drop the price, but inevitably the biggest thing will just be having robo taxis where the barrier to entry is have an app,
Right.
right? That's it. And
Yeah.
so then you could just call it. Now, to go to your point, as far as like the pricing of all that, I don't think that they necessarily have to 6 seconds and it'll be there. Like that's insane. Like even Uber doesn't do that, right?
I meant
Um,
6 minutes. Did I say 6 seconds? I meant
yeah,
six. Yeah.
yeah. But even that, like 6 minutes is honestly kind of perfect because that then it's like, okay, well, I just landed. I'll have enough time to get to the trolley before I have to go walk out. Okay, if at the airport, good, perfect. Or 6 minutes. Yeah, let me call it now. I grab my backpack. Let me grab, a water for the road. Okay, and now it's here.
Right.
So I think that's a nice sweet spot. But even then, to your point, it's like if it's gonna take longer, you could like literally just be like, hey, it's gonna take like 3 extra minutes, so we're gonna discount your rate a little bit at this. And then if you have too much demand, then to your point, prices go up. And then also if you're trying to get more demand, you can drop prices, you can I don't know, there's lots of different things you can do. Uh and honestly, but if it were me, I would highlight with every ride, I would highlight, hey, don't forget, no tip needed.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I
Right.
would literally highlight that. Like, let me just remind everyone every time. Let me put this in everyone's consciousness. No tipping.
Right. Right. Right.
You know,
So,
but
the thing I keep coming back to that nobody talks about, I feel like I'm all by myself on this one, is Tesla has unlimited supply. Everybody else has limited supply. They've just made 1,000. That's all they got. They put those 1,000 out. That's all they got. If they need 1,200, they don't have them. With Tesla, if they start out in Austin and they put out 1,000, and that's not enough, they can put out 500 the next day. I mean,
yeah,
they
but
out
there's
500.
gonna have, they're gonna have to be careful with that though. At first, in the long run, you're right. And when I say long run, I mean like probably after like 6 months, they'll be good. But I don't think you can just throw supply at the problem because you're gonna have to have this nice balance on how many vehicles, how do we flood a market but not over flood it and oversaturate it because then like someone has to deal with the orchestration. Where are all these vehicles going? You know what I mean? Like
But that should be all,
where do
but that
all
should,
what?
oh, you mean where do they sit while they're
Yeah,
waiting?
where do they all sit when they're idle? Like I mean, these are the kind of things that they'll have to think about.
Right, right. I think they're going to, I've always said I think they're going to solve that because they have the infrastructure already in place in terms of their charging stations. And most of those charging stations are in parking lots for Target or parking lots for a shopping center or something, which generally speaking, there's going to be a lot of space up there as if necessary. And in Austin, I'm sure they got lots and lots and lots of the charging stations if they really need to put the car down for a little while. I'm not, but anyway, I get your point, but I think my point is the kind of the opposite. It's like they probably know how many cars per thousand is the right number.
Yeah,
They're going to put that number out there, but if they find out they're getting 9 seconds, 10 seconds on a regular basis, it's not going to be any big deal for them to add to that tariff.
minutes.
Yeah, minutes, minutes. It's not going to be any
Yeah.
big deal for them to add to
Well,
that number. Yeah.
here's I haven't heard anyone give me a good rebuttal to this, but I made this like bold prediction that Waymo will be out of business by the end of 2027.
Okay.
And here's my thought. We'll just use Austin as an example. Um, let's just assume that Tesla wanted to um, get rid of Waymo,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Obviously, they're going to come out and they'll start off first undercutting Uber. Um, and okay, you undercut Uber, you undercut Waymo on pricing. Well, they really only have one thing they can do, right? To combat that is match your pricing
Right.
or undercut you. Probably won't do that. They'll probably just match it. Okay. Well, then Tesla could, again, just try to be 50 cents more effective, right? So there comes a point where you can't keep up. But let's say hypothetically that Waymo said, fuck it, we got Google. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Sorry.
But literally, let's say they said that and they said, okay, well, we're backed by Google. We got deep pockets. We'll offer free rides, Tesla. What are you gonna do about that? Well, then that's where I think it's kind of checkmate because then Tesla could say, all right, Waymo, we'll offer free rides in Austin too. But guess what? In Dallas, in San Antonio, in Houston, all these other cities surrounding Austin, they're not going to be free rides. And Waymo, you're not there yet, but we are. So we're going to charge there. that will subsidize our
Right,
Austin, which will be
right,
free. So
right,
we'll still be making money on all this, and you won't be. And by the way, we'll be able to flood it. So we're going to be a better service, faster service. And they're going to be able to do this everywhere.
right.
And so I don't see, they can do this in San Fran, they can do this in LA. I don't see how Waymo stays in business.
Nope, I
I
don't
don't
either.
see it.
I don't either.
That's assuming Tesla wants. Now, I imagine Tesla doesn't want to do that
No.
because they don't want to be seen as a monopoly, but I still don't see how that doesn't inevitably happen.
Yes.
The $0 in extreme is to show like it doesn't matter how deep Google's pockets are, there's nothing you can do because Google would just be losing money. Tesla would still be making money because, yeah, they'll offer for free in Austin, but all these surrounding cities, they just break even
And then if
and
you
make money.
And then if you add in, starting in January, I'm sorry, yes, starting in January of 2026, you add in a much cooler vehicle
Yeah.
in the Cybercab. So now your customer experience becomes better. I mean, the customer experience is going to be better from day one because it's going to be Model 3s and Model Ys. That's going to be a way better experience than people are having in the Ubers in the backseat or in the Waymos in those, just okay cars. So people
Yeah.
are going to be already having a better experience. Plus, you know what I just thought of? If
What?
if Tesla was offering rides for free and Waymo was offering for rides for fee, every one of those rides is an advertisement for Tesla. Uh,
Yeah.
they're not an advertisement for Google.
Yeah.
So there's always
So
that.
yeah, but so I think it becomes kind of inevitable. I think you're just going to see Teslas everywhere. I after what I just experienced driving up here, um, I mean, don't get me wrong, there were like two little moments where I was like, ah, I probably would have gotten over a little earlier, but like I'm kind of nitpicking at that point. It still did everything extremely safe, very comfortable. It was just like at this point, I don't normally critique it.
Mhm,
At
mhm,
this point, normally it does what I think it should do.
mhm.
So, but that's we haven't had a new build in so long, and so
Right.
you just gotta be wondering like, what's to come? If this where we are now, and we haven't had updates since November, what happens June? What
Yeah.
happens with what they're doing? All the testing they're doing.
Well, there's the great transition then, because this morning they announced that people could sign up to become an early adopter. So I thought it was rather odd. What would it be? First of all, why would you do it now? You're like really only talking about one or two more updates before they're going to be at perfection or whatever, maybe even unsupervised within a month or two or three. So why would they be offering early adopters now? The only thing I could think of is they're getting close to unsupervised and they want a larger group of people as early adopters to drive unsupervised.
Yeah, I don't understand, but it didn't say unsupervised, right? It said supervised.
No, it did.
So
But initially
it's,
they'll be supervised.
yeah, so I wasn't really sure exactly what that was.
Yeah, I think it's just the way it is now. If you were an early adopter now and the 14 comes out and it's still supervised, then you will get an early chance at driving 14.
Yeah,
Anyway, I thought it
I
was
mean, did
no,
you
it's
get it?
funny timing. I thought no, well, first of all, I'm on hardware 3, so I'm not
Hmm.
did you?
I have not, but I did just update the app just to check.
Okay, okay.
Um, no, I mean I was hoping I would, but
Oh, you signed up for
no,
it, but you didn't get it yet.
no, I didn't. I don't even have the option to sign up for it.
Oh, you don't have the option to sign up. Okay, interesting. Oh, they said it was not necessarily worldwide, or uh, uh, it wasn't necessarily everywhere, but maybe later, maybe later. There's still hope for you.
I know.
All
Let's hope.
right,
Uh,
let's back in to the tariff story, but let's back into the tariff story through Tesla.
okay.
One recommendation that came out this morning actually was pretty interesting. It came from Barron's. I'm forgetting the author's name who writes for Barron's. It just skipped my mind. But anyway, he's the regular Tesla guy on Barron's. And he suggested two thoughts that I had not thought of, and I haven't heard anybody else talking about. So I'm interested to hear your opinion. One is that China themselves are already slightly retaliating against Tesla in one of their subsidy programs, and that they could retaliate even more The government could. Maybe not in a major way because they want Tesla to do well. They don't want, their employees to go home. But they might, decide to use Tesla as a wedge. And his point too was that the consumer might also be negative towards American products or towards Tesla if they see this as a fight between China and the United States, kind of like we're hearing from Canada. What do you think about those two thoughts?
Um, I think I think they're very different. Um, Tesla is a very important company in China, and China's already seen a lot of repercussions against companies like during COVID. And they've seen, like, if it wasn't for COVID, Apple wouldn't have started moving out into Vietnam and looking at India. Like, they wouldn't have done that.
Mhm.
So COVID was kind of a forced mechanism for a lot of people to say, or a lot of companies to say, okay, we need to get away from this single point of failure. If they were to go after Tesla like that, it would just drive even more of that. And you don't want that.
Mhm.
So I think China's a whole lot smarter than that. Um, I also think that the clientele, the people of China are a lot different than the people in the West. In the West, people are a lot softer, um,
Yeah,
a lot more emotional. Uh, they don't think logically. Um, whereas I think, whereas I think in China, they're just more logical thinkers, more technologically driven. Um, so I don't know. I just don't see people making that connection, saying like they know like there's nothing you're gonna do. Like, okay, I'm not gonna buy Teslas. Like, and what does that do for me? Like, that's not gonna do anything. That's not gonna change anything for me, right? So I don't know. I don't see it. Canada's a little different. I think people are a lot more emotional there.
oh boy.
Uh, we're right next to each other. We're supposed to be friends, right? We're never supposed to be friends with China.
Right,
Like,
right.
that's not a thing that's in anyone's. We don't share, like, with Canada. We share NHL leagues, NBA leagues. Um, we don't have anything like that with China. In fact, it's like the opposite.
Right.
The Chinese love it when our NBA players go over there. They love it when Elon's there. They love Tesla brand. I mean, hell, they love Janet Yellen. Like they love Elon Musk's mom. Like it's just a whole different culture over there. Um, so I don't know. I think it's very, very different, and I don't think China plays those kind of games. I think China's a lot more tactical than blunt instrument force.
All right, let's go fully into the tariffs then. We've managed to leave it until last, even though we started with it, but let's dive in. I've been making the statement all day, even though it's impossible for most people to understand that tariffs are not inflationary. In fact, if anything, they're deflationary. That they can cause price increases, sometimes do, sometimes don't. But the proof that they're deflationary was the fact that Trump 1.0 put in all those heavy duty tariffs, and we had a 1.51%, even zero inflationary period during the Trump administration. That when you put in tariffs other than the one time price increase, they don't have any impact on productivity. They don't have any impact on the amount of money in the system. Therefore, they're not inflationary by definition, but that they can become deflationary by virtue of the fact that the tariff money is contributing to the revenue of the government, which reduces the necessary revenue from other places or decreases the deficit, which therefore decreases interest rates and decreases the amount of money that the government has to spend to fund their net negative borrowing. So that's my theory, and I had multiple people clapping back and saying, "But Randy, it is inflation because the price goes up." Well, price and inflation are not the same thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I think this is a I don't think you can soundbite this. Tariffs are, if you have tariffs on and you didn't have tariffs on before, we've got all of a sudden this tax that has to be paid, right? Now, let's say it's $10. It is disingenuous, I think, to say that, okay, well, now those $10 has to be dealt with by the consumer. I also think it's disingenuous to say the suppliers are going to eat that $10. I think the truth is more kind of in the messy middle, where I think whoever the the tier one, tier two, so on suppliers are, they'll probably be asked to, hey, I need you to find something here. You're gonna have to eat some of this. You'll have to eat some of this. We'll have to eat some of this. But then the consumer's also gonna have to eat some of it. Now, to your point, that's kind of a one-time forcing function for the consumer. It's not a one-time forcing function um, for the supplier potentially, because the supplier may now have a permanent
Right.
reduced margin, right?
Not going
That's
to go,
completely
it's
possible.
not going to go up another 10% next year.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
$10, right.
So it would be transitory
Right. Yeah. I
inflation, if you
know.
want to call
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
that. So I think everybody's has a point, but the way I think I hear everybody saying their point isn't totally honest. Not talking about you specifically, but I'm just saying when I hear people say it's inflation, no, no, it's not. It's like, well, how do you view inflation? But no, it wouldn't all. And at the same time, like if we could take in all this extra revenue, but your XYZ thing costs an extra 25 cents,
Yeah.
do you really care?
Yeah.
Like, is it meaningful? Is it not? Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe it is if you are also invested in that company and you're like, oh, this isn't good for our margins. Okay, then maybe you care more. But I think the real question is, what's the bigger plan here?
Mhm.
Like, it it does not seem like this is all there. This is not the plan. Clearly, this is not the plan.
Right.
Clearly, this is part
Part
of the plan.
part one.
Yeah. Well, I think part one started a while ago.
Okay. So part
You
two.
know, I think we're like in part six
Okay.
now. Like it started off with talking about it, and then it started off, with making big proclamations about Canada and Mexico and Greenland and Panama and China and all these things, Taiwan, and you get TikTok in there, right? Like I feel like all of this, like this, they're all circling around the same kind of topics. And now all of a sudden it's been check out my nice poster board here. This is what they're charging us. There's a lot of debate on if it's BS, those numbers that were just like where they come from. And you know, it's hard to say, like, I don't know what's real, what's not real. I don't know how they actually got to everyone's talking about this formula or whatever. I don't know if that's actually how they got to it, but it sure seems like there's a bigger plan here. And part of the plan was a shock and awe because these last 2 days,
Shock
yep,
and awe.
everybody got shocked. And what you saw right after that was Trump saying, no, I'm not trying to negotiate with anyone. Only to now it's like, yeah, I'm going to talk. So you got something. And then you see today Trump talk about Vietnam and he talked about China made a mistake. Um, so clearly this was, I think, more so designed to bring people to the table to start off high, try to get down to the middle. And I do think ideally you would have just zero tariffs on both sides, like free trade. Like I think free trade is good at the end of
Right.
the day.
Right.
And maybe free trade doesn't mean zero zero.
Mhm.
It might mean there's still a tariff,
Yep.
but net net it's free
Right.
because maybe we make a lot of rice, but you make a lot of metal,
Mhm.
But I know you can also grow rice. And I don't want you to screw over our local main source of jobs. So I'll have a tariff on that, but we won't have on these others just to make sure that we can stabilize our own economy. Like that makes sense.
Right.
So I can see things like that. And I think that's what's going to happen. But it's going to get messy.
Okay, so what do you think about the reality that we are by far the biggest market? We're 34% of the total world economy is the United States. That we import three times as much stuff from China, for instance, as they import from us. That that Trump is just sitting in the catbird seat. He has all the cards. He's got four aces and he's got deuce in case deuces are wild. I mean, it's like, so he's got five aces if deuces are wild. I don't see what now, China says, well,
Well,
what about rare earths? Well, you know what? On an emergency basis, I'll bet you we could find all the rare earths that we needed in a really, really fast.
I think he may have the four aces, but there's always a royal flush potential, and your four aces would be useless against that. Um, and that royal flush scenario, I think, would be where the rest of the world team up against us, and that's possible. I mean, it is possible. Um, but I don't know. I don't see that happening.
No, I'm with you.
Vietnam's a good example. Uh,
How about Israel, India? I mean, it's not just Vietnam that's already said last week, even before Tuesday, you had India, Israel, Vietnam, and somebody else. I forget who. Oh, United Kingdom. Already saying that they were absolutely 100% working round the clock to come up with solutions.
yeah, I I do think at the end of the day we are in the driving seat. And I do think at the end of the day, especially for a country like China, who's already struggling,
Yeah,
they're not going to have a choice.
yeah,
Like maybe they just want to seem strong in front of their people, which fair
right,
enough. I don't blame them for that either. But you really don't have a choice. Like you don't. Like your economy is built on making things. But if all of a sudden we stop buying those things you make, yeah, it may be uncomfortable for us. We
right,
may not love it, but our economy doesn't collapse because we're not buying the things from you. Your economy will stop
right.
because all of a sudden your manufacturing backs up. All of a sudden you don't have anywhere to sell your stuff. All of a sudden you gotta lay people off. Like it just has this whole domino effect,
Yeah.
and you're right. We would feel it as well
Mhm.
because there's certain things that you just have to buy from China. Like they do a lot of the refining in the world.
Right,
Um, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's anything that we like. There's wants and needs,
right,
right?
right,
I don't think there's many things that we need from China that we couldn't figure out on our own.
right,
Again, many things may be uncomfortable.
right, right, right,
Stock markets might crash and all that, but at the end of the day, as far as like bare necessities, what they need, their bare necessity, is to keep people working and employed
right.
and getting goods out of their country. So we're definitely in the driving seat when it comes to that. So
So,
I
yeah.
don't know.
So one of the suggestions, again, this was from the B2G guys, in their discussion last night. They did a quick show, and I think it was also Brad that said this. He says what we're really looking at here is a transfer of wealth. In the Trump years, the transfer of wealth is going to be from the wealthy to the middle class. So what we saw during Biden and even, quite frankly, during the last 2 years of Trump was a transfer from the middle class to the wealthy. So our stocks went up, our homes values went up. Any other assets that we might have had probably went up. I mean, all the asset classes went up. Maybe everything but commodities, which might have been kind of flat. So even gold has gone crazy. So we've
Very
seen,
good.
and what's happened during that time is we've been hollowing out the middle class for 40 years, but this was a dramatic hollowing out. The middle class did really badly under Biden because of inflation. And so Trump has said for 35 years that this was happening. For 35 years, he said it's because of trade. And for 35 years, he said that we need to solve this. And now he's solving it. He's stepping up to the line. He is the Reagan of 1980, the Volcker of 1980. And he's saying, okay, we're going to have to take some pain here. And I'm willing to take the pain. I'm willing to be the bad guy. I'm willing to look bad and have my numbers go down for a while I do the statesman-like thing, and return some of these manufacturing jobs to the United States and help the middle class. And yep, you rich people, your commodities, I mean your asset class items may not do as well in the next 4 years as they've done in the last 8, but it's going to be better long term for everybody. What do you think of that argument?
Well, I don't know where I fall in the pecking order on all of that, but I sure hope my stocks go up. Uh,
Hey, listen,
yeah,
yeah, okay, go ahead. Never mind.
you go.
I was just going to say the middle class didn't stop earning during that 8 year period. They just fell behind, so they didn't get as good a return, as they might have. Their basically their paycheck went down in real terms. So your paycheck might go down in real terms over the next 4 years, but it's not going to go. It's not like you're going to lose, your the overall asset. Anyway, we've seen this
Yeah.
before. You've been around long enough that I don't know. You probably haven't gone through a 50% reduction in your housing value. I've gone through at least 3 times where my house went down half in half. Yeah,
Not house, but yeah, portfolio for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, it's interesting, right? Because now also the 10 years down, so mortgage rates are coming down. So it's like it, really the house asset just went up in many
Right,
ways,
right. Yes, it did.
right?
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think here's what I know. If you go to a lot of cities, a lot of towns driving through the United States, and you leave the coastal cities, a lot of them are just hollowed out, like you said. They're shells of what they were.
Mhm.
And it's amazing what one factory, one plant, one, company establishing, a little manufacturing here or there can do to revitalize an entire town, entire city. And you have to do it, and this is the only way to solve that is to get manufacturing back in the States. And the thing that everybody always says is, well, then things are going to be more expensive. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but that also means wages will go up because people will get paid more. And that's why they're more expensive.
Right.
And that means those people can pay more in taxes, right? And that's a good thing. Like we shouldn't like it's I get dumbfounded when people talk about, oh, we want these illegal immigrants here so that they can do things at cheaper labor. And my whole thing is like, well, don't you want to not have illegal people here, instead pay Americans a higher wage? Like, at the end of the day, if we all have to pay a little more for something, but that means we get that many more people who have better wages, revitalize our cities, like I mean, it has such a ripple effect. We're so scared to have people do the work here. And you see what's happened like in China, what capitalism's done in China to lift so many people out of poverty. And it's like, okay, well, like imagine if you had all that manufacturing here, where we would be.
Right.
Like, yeah, there's a reason why it's lifted all those people out of poverty. So what happens when those jobs are here?
Right.
And yeah, you will have to pay more for them. And yeah, that will mean that businesses will probably make slightly less margin and things will be slightly more expensive, less like tariffs, right? It's not all one or the other. Not everything gets passed on, not everything gets eaten by the manufacturer or the company.
Mhm.
And I think that's needed. And right now it's going to be painful because Trump can't force companies to build a manufacturer here. He can't.
Right. Right.
There's nothing he can do,
No,
but he can
it
make
can.
it very advantageous
Yeah.
and he can make it very hard to be profitable and not be in the States. And so I think if Trump is successful here and starts getting either lower tariffs across the board, So that would be good, right? Because that drops prices for people here in the States
Mhm.
uh, to be able to sell things overseas as well. Or companies or countries don't acquiesce and they decide to build here and open up manufacturing plants here. But then Trump also needs to be ready to essentially have an expedited regulatory process because what you don't want is things to take 4 or 6 years. Otherwise, you're just not going to see the benefits. It should not take more than, in my opinion, 6 months for a company to come in, find a location, break ground. Like that should be the tops, 6 months tops.
Way less, way less. Yeah, it should be
Yeah, I agree.
less than that. Yeah. In fact, I was just talking to Brian Wang a little while ago, not on camera, but was talking about when I moved my plant the last time, they they decided that they wanted a clean company in that facility instead of a light manufacturer. And so they gave me like 3 months notice. And I said, well, I can't move in 3 months. I can't find a location, fix up the location, get all my stuff moved over. And so I basically did everything I could, including allowing them to sue me to get out of them so that I could get 7 months, which is what it took. So yes, from the day that we started looking for a new facility in a very tight market, finding the building was the biggest problem. So once you find the building, after that, yeah, permits can be a problem, but pretty much after that, you're good to go. But if you can find the building quickly, then you could be doing it a lot less than 6 months.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, so then another person made the argument. They said, "Oh, American men, well, American people in general, they don't want to work in factories." And I responded in my normal way by saying, "Well, maybe young American men do want to work in factories, but it's just not an option. Hasn't been an option. Maybe they like getting their arms up into the grease and turning screws and so there's a few women that would be in that case too, but it's mostly men who would like to be able to do a manly job, but those jobs have been going to
Well, it's also I think there's this visual of what a factory worker is,
yeah,
and it's very dated.
yeah,
you know? And probably a lot of it's because you'll see like factories like in Detroit, like
right,
auto factories that are dated
right.
versus seeing like a Tesla
That's a
factory,
factory.
right? Which, yeah. And so honestly, here's all right, here's what will be the most ironic plot twist
Okay.
will be if the hollowing out of our middle class in our manufacturing, saying that overseas was actually the best thing that could have happened to us. Because now, when we bring manufacturing back, we're not stuck with all the sunk costs, all the legacy manufacturing. Instead, we can implement new, novel ways of manufacturing, have people come in, and those jobs are more of a white collar meets blue collar job rather than just straight blue collar, like always getting greasy, going home dirty. Like, it's you're using a lot more technology, robotics, computers, sensor. You're just using a lot more in the way of technology. But if you had that sunk costs already, it that's almost a incentive not to modernize. And so now
Yeah,
everything would be starting from scratch.
right, right,
So that almost gives you an opportunity to leapfrog a society of nothing but modern manufacturing.
right, right.
So I think that'd be interesting. The only thing is that because we've been so absent of manufacturing for so long in so many industries, there's probably a lot we don't know that we haven't been able to learn or keep up with. But even then, I think you just hire the right people, bring them in.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you're a company and you've been doing it overseas, you can easily bring that over here and do it here, right?
Well, we do have this one guy again. It's called Elon,
Yeah,
who has been building the most amazing factories anywhere in the world, and so he's also trained up a bunch of people over the years who have gone off and started their own facilities,
sure.
et cetera. And so I think there's probably a bunch of people that have gone to the Musk University who are prepared to help with that transition. And then there's even the potential, they've already been talking about it at the White House about really emphasizing that as a high school curriculum, and a post-high school curriculum to get
Yeah.
into those trades. This has been talked about now for 10 years. So much of what is to me, I'm sorry if I sound like a Trump sycophant, but so much of this to me Trump is constantly doing what has been talked about for decades, but nobody ever had the cojones to do it. So whether it was putting the U.S. embassy in Palestine, which or I'm sorry, in 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 yeah, I guess in Palestine, which had been talked about forever, and then he finally did it. Whether it's the the Abraham Accords in Israel, whether it's ending war, whether it is tariffing in order to bring back middle class jobs. I mean, these things have been talked about for
Yeah,
generations. But he's the one that's stepping up and doing it. Maybe the next one, and it looks like the next one will probably be Social Security, as because we have to solve Social Security, and I'm thinking they will touch that third rail as well.
probably. Randy, I'm gonna, I don't know if I'm gonna put a, I think I'm going to.
You're
I'm
not going to
pasting a
do it
picture.
unless I give it to you. I'm going to have to give you the opportunity. There we go. Now you can.
Uh, well, no, I was gonna try to paste it into the. All right. Well, let me see.
Oh, okay.
All
I see
right.
you
Well,
shrinking here. I know I'm old, but I shouldn't be shrinking.
all right. Let's see if I can do this. I just came across something that's interesting. So let me see if I can share my screen to share with all of you.
What you found.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Let's let me know what you see.
I see a chart. VIX
Okay.
45. Wow, 45.
Yeah. So this is the S&P 500 after the VIX reaches 45. Um,
Oh,
and what happens like in the following time period.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so here you could see like 97, that day later, 2 days later, right? Continue paying, but then we started seeing some green.
I see.
But you could see these across the board, what they end up looking like.
Yeah.
Obviously, September 29th, 2008, that was not the prettiest, but still, we rebounded 5, 4, and then, kind of netted out. But I think this shows down here, average percent positive is about 2.5%, 57. 1 day later,
I see.
1.75, 2 days later.
Oh,
Um, not to like try to like say, hey, the bottom's in or anything like
right,
that,
right.
but it is interesting to
Yeah,
take a look at,
yeah.
and just knowing that clearly you can see here it's not necessarily all over, because you can still have way more reds, but it does seem like with the downturns that we've had that there could be, you just gotta hang on.
Right, right,
you
right,
know
right, right. Yes,
we
yes.
we might just be almost on the other side of these things. And you don't know, like, I think odds are over the weekend we're going to hear a lot. I bet we hear a lot, because as much as Trump's pretending he doesn't care about the markets, I know he cares about the markets. And I know he's probably got a lot of pressure.
I think he's getting a lot of pressure, but what he said today out loud was that he didn't give a whatever. And I think what he meant to say by that, I think what I heard in that was this has to be done. It's like I couldn't stop the doctor in the middle of doing heart surgery on me and say, "Oh, stop! No, no, never mind. Don't
Yeah.
finish the job." No, he's going to finish the job. He's going to sew up the wound, and then he's going to wait for the results. I mean, not in so many words, but the results will come. Some people say, "Well, it could be disastrous." Yes, it could. Every risk has the potential for not turning out the way we hope. There's also ways to mitigate or to soften the blow if we see that things are not working the way that we want to. It's not like everything that was just decided is set in stone forever. Yes. So anyway, I think I'm always the optimist, but I also think this is the right thing to do. This is the part that I'm insisting on.
Real quick, thoughts on Jerome Powell?
Thoughts on Jerome Powell? So I think Jerome Powell is a chicken. Cluck, cluck, cluck. I think he also doesn't want to be seen as bending the knee. So even if he just waited until the next meeting, I think he could feel like he didn't bend the knee. Because he could have bent the knee and just come out today and said, okay, I'll drop him a quarter, drop him a half. They could have had a
So,
meeting.
so you think he's going to drop at the next meeting?
Well, as he said, we need to see a lot more data. So the employment data today was fine. It was good. The fact that it went up to 4.2 was meaningless. The number of jobs, 224,000, was solid, and it was not government. Government went down, not up. So this was to me, it was a very good print. Inflation, the prints have been okay, been good. So in fact, all the jobs reports, jolts, everything was good this week. So he doesn't have a solid reason other than taking into consideration the impact of the tariffs.
Hmm.
And quite frankly, I've been saying this for 2 years. I think the treasuries are way more important than what the Fed does.
Okay. Well, but clearly the treasuries would be saying that we are overly restricted right now.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I think they would be saying that they think that this is going to slow down the economy. I agree. Been saying that for weeks, 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 weeks.
Yeah.
The economy is going to slow. Tariffs or no tariffs, it would have already slowed down because of the government cutbacks. But you add in the tariffs, it's going to slow down the economy, especially because of the chaos. So we're going
Hmm.
to slow down the economy. I have no doubt of that. How much will that slow down? Will we be 1% over, not counting the import-export problem? Will we be a point over? Will we be a point under? I could care less. I think recessions are good. I've said that on this channel how many times? You have to have them once in a while to clean out the gunk. There are terrible employees. There are terrible companies. There are terrible products within companies, and recessions wipe a lot of that away because people just have the company owners have to become more in touch with the things that they need to cut or change when you're in a recession.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yep.
Um, so where do we go from here, Randy?
Well, you know me, the optimist. So for me, Tesla. I'm buying into the Brian Wang version. All the bad news is in. All we have is positive catalysts. Brian and I will be doing a show tomorrow morning on the catalysts. We'll be talking about that. So I think we have positive catalysts. Of course there could be some negatives. But interest rates are coming down. That's going to be good for car sales. Anyway, I think maybe the bottom is in for Tesla or very close to being in. Could we hit 225? Uh-huh. Market as a whole, I didn't think we'd have this second leg down, but I didn't know that China was going to be so stupid as to try to get in Trump's face. But I think this could be remarkably short in terms of the downturn. This could be a
Mm.
this could be a how we get up some mornings and there's an economic report out that was at 5:30 and the stock market is just going totally down for the first 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then people read the rest of it instead of just the headline, and then the market recovers fully. I think this could be a knee jerk that actually, it won't go back up to all time highs, but we could easily go back to the 7 to 10% down on the S&P quickly. What do you think?
Does um I think this weekend's gonna tell a lot, is what I think. I do think there's so much overreact. I think there's been so much overreaction for months now. And especially with a company like Tesla specifically. Um, I don't know if the market will rebound as hard. I feel like Tesla has to rebound. It just seems almost inevitable that it's going to or it has to uh before June.
Mhm.
Um, but are you still intact with your price targets for end of the year? Does that
Yep.
change at all?
Nothing's changed.
What was
100%.
that?
Uh,
7,000?
700 by the end of the 700 by the end of the year plus plus. So if the robotaxi rollout is reasonably successful, that's worth another 250 or 300. And if Optimus is announced before the end of the year, that's worth another 250 to 300.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think the second part of this year is going to look a lot different, but it's going to be a lot of work to get there.
I still also have my 480 for the end of May.
480 for end of May.
Yeah, for all time back to all time high by the end of May.
Oh,
FOMO, FOMO,
wow.
FOMO, FOMO, FOMO.
You think
Every
so?
every time Tesla has gone to its all-time high in the last 4 years, it's always been because of FOMO around robotaxi. So
Walk me through that every time.
410, the last time when it hit 410, you had a risk on market. So I think we need to have the market going back towards risk on also. But it was the robotaxi coming out soon. Everybody believed it was coming in a week. Okay, soon is when we hit 410. And then a few months ago, when we went to 480, I think that was a ton of robotaxi excitement and a risk on
Mm,
market. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think survive April and the rest of the year will be pretty good. But you guys survive April.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah. Well, was it you that said those of us who are in it? Yeah, you just said it a minute ago. I'm going to keep that's going to be my thumbnail.
What?
Those of us who have been in all along are not selling before June.
Oh, no. No way. No way.
Yeah.
There's zero chance.
Right.
Like there's no way. And that's not to say that anything's gonna happen come June,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. We ain't selling before June.
could. It could. Yeah. Yeah. I really do think there's I think there's a good shot that Austin goes really well
Yeah.
and that they quickly start expanding to other cities.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if they're in 4 or 5 cities by the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
and not just in one state.
And also unsupervised.
You think that comes this year?
I hope so. I sure hope so. I don't see how you can have robotaxis running all over the country and not allow the rest of us to have unsupervised. It's just unfair.
Well, because you could have someone at Tesla kind of supervising it, right?
I know yes, you'll have the
So
remote operator. Yes. So you could
yes,
justify it is what you're saying, but nah,
yeah,
they need to let us, they need to let us off the hook. Take away the nag, the final nag.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I wonder how that would work. Yeah, that's a hard moment to get to
Yeah, agreed.
because at that point Tesla has to have liability, right?
Oh yeah, they're 100%. Yeah, people say, well, will Tesla take liability? Doesn't matter. They would have liability. No court in the world is going to say that they don't have liability.
Yeah, yeah. If they're saying that we don't have to pay attention.
Yeah, if we don't have to pay attention, then it's the car. The car is in charge.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
we live, so the Chinese proverb, right? We live in such interesting times. Yes.
We
May,
do. We
May
really do.
in interesting time. Nicholas Gibbs, it's been great having you on as always. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.
Have a good weekend.